Now that we're well into the offseason, it's time to continue evaluating teams' prospect pools going into next year. Hey, it's Matt from Puck Rivals, and today I'll be covering the top 5 prospects for the Toronto Maple Leafs. To go over the eligibility requirements again, for a player to be considered for these rankings, they must be under 24 years old and have played less than 25 games in a single NHL season. First, we'll take a look at the guys who have graduated from this list after this past year. Make sure to leave a comment on your top 5 prospect list for the Leafs, and let's get right into it. The 2 graduates from the Leafs prospect list this year are Rasmus Sandin and Pierre Engvall. Engvall doesn't meet either requirement anymore since he is now 24 and played 48 games last season, and Sandin just passed the games requirement by playing 28, or else he would have been a lock to be number 1 on this prospect list. Now moving on to the number 5 prospect in the Leafs system, we have Swedish center Filip Hallander. Hallander was acquired this offseason as a part of the captain trade with Pittsburgh, and Dubas has apparently been high on him since his draft year in 2018. He's not an overly flashy player, but is very responsible and can be trusted in all 3 zones. Hallander has had a solid start in the SHL this year, with 4 points in 9 games for Liljegren. He's never going to wow you with his skill, but he can chip in offensively from time to time. Hallander could become a key depth piece for the Leafs in the future, and has the ability to play up and down the lineup for them. At number 4, we have skilled Russian forward Mikhail Abramov. The 4th round pick in 2019 saw a huge jump in his development last season, leading Victoriaville in scoring with 76 points in 63 games. Abramov followed up that season with 8 points in 4 games to start this year, before the Q's season was paused for Quebec teams due to a rise in COVID cases. Abramov brings high-end upside and playmaking ability, and is great at creating plays and setting up his teammates. He has worked on developing his shot to add another offensive weapon to go with his passing, but it's still the other end of the ice that he needs to work on the most. If Abramov is ever going to make the NHL, he needs to become a little more reliable in his own end, but his potential offensive upside could see him becoming a top 9 scoring forward if he continues to develop. Moving on to the 3rd ranked prospect in the Leafs system, we have defenseman Timothy Liljegren. Liljegren has been an interesting case since he fell in his draft year to the Leafs at 17th in 2017. He started to round out his game over the past couple years with the Marlies, putting up 30 points in 40 games this year, and being their go-to guy. Liljegren has always been a great skater and puck mover, and now has to make that next step and transfer that skill to the NHL level. He looked so-so in sheltered minutes with the big club last year during his 11 games. And even with the depth additions on the back end this offseason, will likely get the chance to show his development in some games this year. Liljegren has the potential to be a 3-4 D-man with offensive upside, but it will likely be a year or 2 until we see him have the chance to make a real impact in that role. At number 2 in the Leafs prospect rankings, we have 2020 15th overall pick Rodion Amirov. The pick used on Amirov was the key piece in the captain trade, and he brings an abundance of skill to the table. Amirov probably has the most all-around skill out of this whole prospect group, and saw his draft stock rise due to a great start with UFA in the KHL, where he currently has 6 points in 16 games, which is impressive for a guy who just turned 19 playing in Russia's top league. He has great agility and is very good on his edges, and is also confident making plays off the rush. Amirov brings high-end hockey sense and projects to be a top 6 scoring winger. With his contract in the KHL expiring after this season, it wouldn't be shocking to see him sign in Toronto for 2021 and bounce between the NHL and AHL, especially with the Leafs cap situation going forward. And finally, the number 1 ranked prospect in the Leafs rankings this season is scoring winger Nick Robertson. This probably came as no surprise because he absolutely tore up the OHL last year, putting up 55 goals in 46 games for the Peterborough Petes. There's no doubt in his offensive abilities, and he didn't look lost in his 4 NHL play-in games either, where he ended up scoring a goal. Robertson has a heavy shot and great puck skills, and despite being 5'9", has a compete level and hockey sense that make up for his lack of size. It wouldn't be shocking to see him as a regular in the Leafs' top 6 in a couple years, as he has the skill to be an effective scoring winger. Before this free agent season, I definitely had Robertson penciled in as the 3rd line left winger, but after all these depth signings that Dubas pulled off, it's essentially bumped Robertson out of the bottom 6 for the time being. It will depend on how this season runs, but if they have taxi squads for the year, I could see Robertson there again and playing some games. But if not, I also wouldn't be shocked if he gets sent back to the O to play top line minutes in all situations. Of course, that's also dependent on them getting their season started smoothly too. And now, even though these are the top 5 players, there were still some honorable mentions that were close to cracking this list too. Now, this honorable mentions list includes 2020 Finnish second round picks Topi Niemela and Roni Hirvonen. Also, there's 2019 third rounder Mikko Kokkonen. All very tough last names to pronounce. Now, to summarize this top 5, this is a way stronger group compared to the Leafs prospect pool 1 year ago. Some of that has to do with big jumps in development from guys like Robertson and Abramov, but an even larger part of this group's improvement has to do with that Kapanen trade, where Dubas was able to add the 2nd and 5th ranked prospects on this list. Not that bad of a return for trading a guy who was used on the 3rd line for the most part. With all the depth moves this team made, I really only see Liljegren playing enough games to be off this list next year, with most of the other players needing more time to develop. Overall, the Leafs made significant upgrades to its very thin prospect pool. I am personally happy with the picks Dubas and company have made and acquired. These young players should develop in a few years to become effective and affordable roster options to keep this team's winning window open as long as possible. Let us know in the comments what you think of these rankings, and what other teams you'd like to see next, as we plan on making this a series during the offseason. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, and subscribe if you like hockey videos, because that's what we do in this channel. This is Matt from Puck Rivals, and I'll see you next time.